Ember of the Lost Path. The wind howled like a wounded animal, shrieking through the wooden stakes that once marked the border of my village. They shoved me past the last post without ceremony. No farewell, no kind words, just the weight of their hatred pressing into my back. I didn't resist. What would be the point? Words were wasted on people who had already decided you were a monster. You have no place among us, Elowen, Elder Hearth had said, his face as blank and cold as the stones lining the well. Behind him, the villagers stood, familiar faces twisted into sneers and cold glares. Even the baker's wife, who once slipped me sweet rolls for helping her son, wouldn't meet my eyes. I clutched my thin cloak tighter around my shoulders and stumbled forward into the mist-choked woods, the place every child was taught to fear. My heart beat so loud it almost drowned out the last thing I heard. A child's voice, small and scared, asking, "Is she cursed?" No one answered him. Maybe because they already knew. The woods swallowed me whole. The world outside the village was alive, and it was not kind. The trees creaked and shifted as if whispering secrets. Strange beasts moved just out of sight, their eyes glinting in the dark. Sometimes the very ground sighed under my boots, tired of bearing my weight. I had nothing. No home, no allies, no future. Only the old, aching question that had followed me all my life. Why me? Nights blurred into days. Hunger gnawed at my insides. Sleep was shallow and full of visions. A woman's tear-streaked face, a blade flashing in firelight, a child's wail cut short. I woke each time with the taste of ash in my mouth. It was during one of those long, hopeless nights that I first saw the firelight, a thin, flickering promise between the trees. Desperate, I followed. A man knelt by a small campfire, muttering to himself in a language that made my skin crawl. His hands moved through the air, weaving patterns I almost recognized from old village warnings. Magic. Panic flared inside me. Run! Every instinct screamed. Hide! But the fire's warmth and the smell of roasting meat rooted me to the spot. Before I could bolt, the man lifted his head slightly, his eyes gleaming like embers. "You're not from around here," he said without turning. His voice was rough, but not cruel. I hesitated. "I'm from nowhere," I rasped. He chuckled, low and dry. "Then maybe you belong here more than you know." Kalen, that was his name, offered me bread and a place by his fire. No questions, no judgments, only wary glances and words sharp as flint. I learned quickly that he was no savior. Kalen lived by one rule: survive. Lie if you must, steal if you can, fight if you're cornered. Right and wrong are luxuries for the powerful, he muttered once, staring into the flames. Days turned to weeks. Kalen and I travelled loosely together, drifting from one cursed place to the next. The woods deepened, thick with rot and forgotten magic. At night, I would stare into the fire and wonder if this was all my life would ever be. An endless, meaningless struggle just to exist. And then, on the edge of the marshlands, we found him. Or rather, he found us. The beasts came first. Twisted things with too many legs and eyeless faces, slipping through the muck with bone-chilling cries. I froze, dagger in hand, heart hammering uselessly. Then, through the mist, a figure crashed into view, sword flashing silver, cutting the monsters down one by one. When the last beast fell, he sank to his knees, blood staining the mud around him. Kaelin hesitated. I did too. Trust was not something freely given in these lands. But when the man, Sir Roderick, he called himself, looked up, there was no malice in his eyes, only exhaustion and something fiercer. Duty. Later, by the fire, he said, "The world will break you if you let it. Stand for something, even if it kills you." I didn't answer. I wasn't sure I believed in anything anymore. We pushed deeper into the wilds. The three of us now. A fragile alliance, born more of necessity than friendship. The land grew stranger. Trees with blackened veins. Rivers that whispered when you turned your back. And then we found her. A child, barefoot and staring into nothing. Standing alone at the edge of a frost-covered meadow. The mist curled around her, but she didn't seem to notice. Kaelin muttered a curse under his breath. "Witch-born," he said. "Best leave her to her fate." But Roderick shook his head. "We leave no innocent behind." His voice brooked no argument. Reluctantly, I approached. The girl, Mira, barely spoke. When she did, it was in riddles and half-remembered dreams. "The roots are poisoned," she whispered once, clutching my wrist in a grip far too strong for her frame. "The past still lives. She watches." I should have been frightened. Instead, I felt a terrible familiarity, as if I were also something cursed and half-broken, like her. And so, we journeyed on, 4 shadows stitched together by necessity and something darker. Destiny, perhaps. The road grew harder. Black forests gave way to blasted plains, where nothing lived but thorned flowers that sliced open our boots and skin alike. Abandoned villages stood like hollowed-out corpses, every window a silent scream. Each place peeled something away from me. My innocence, my mercy, my hope. I stole from the dead. I killed when I had to. Not because I wanted to, because I couldn't afford not to. Still, the old question clawed at my mind. Why was I abandoned? It gnawed at me in the dark hours, when the others slept and I kept lonely vigil by the dying fire. Every choice I made seemed to pull me further from the girl I used to be. Was there even a way back? At last, we reached the end of the world. Caer Nithis. The ruined castle rose from the mist like a broken tooth, its stones slick with centuries of blood and sorrow. The air around it crackled with unseen power. Dark, oily magic that sank into your bones. As we crossed the threshold, Mira whimpered and clutched my hand. "She's waiting," she whispered. And she was. At the heart of the throne room, amidst shattered banners and cold stone, stood Ivara. The sorceress was beautiful, terrible and perfect, like a statue carved from grief itself. "You seek answers, little foundling," she said, her voice filling the room like smoke. "Let me show you." I didn't resist. I was tired of fighting shadows. I needed truth. She touched my forehead, and the world shattered. Visions tore through me. A mother sobbing as she gave me up. A council of grim-faced elders muttering of danger of prophecy. Blood spilled on an altar. My name whispered like a curse. When I staggered back, gasping, Ivara smiled. "You were abandoned," she said, almost tenderly, "because you were born with too much power. You could save them, or destroy them, and they feared you more than they loved you." I wanted to scream. to deny it, but I knew it was true. You don't have to be alone, Ivara whispered, stepping closer. Join me, rule them, crush those who cast you out. The temptation was a living thing, rising in my chest like a storm. But then I thought of Kaelin, broken and fierce, of Roderick, bleeding but unbowed, of Mira, clutching my hand in the dark. I thought of the girl I once was, and I chose. The battle tore the throne room apart. Ivara lifted her hands and the very air shivered. Darkness poured from her fingertips like living smoke, coiling and writhing into monstrous forms. Shadows with razor teeth and empty eyes snapped into being, hissing like boiling water. Kaelin was the first to move. With a snarl, he flung out his hands and spat words of old magic. Arcs of searing green light shot from his palms, slicing through the nearest shade, which dissolved into oily mist with a scream that set my teeth on edge. Sweat poured down Kaelin's face, his fingers trembling from the strain. I knew that every spell he cast came at a terrible price. Roderick charged forward without hesitation. His blade, blessed and burning with a soft silver light, cleaved through shadow and bone alike. A twisted creature lunged for him, a thing made of stitched corpses and hatred. And he met it head on, driving his sword into its gaping maw. Blood, or something like it, exploded outward, spattering the cracked stones. Through it all, Mira stood back, her small figure still and eerily calm. Then she began to sing. The sound was ancient and terrible, too large for such a small body. Her song twisted around us like an invisible shield, shattering lesser beasts to dust and warping Ivara's magic mid-air. Cracks raced up the blackened pillars of the throne room, sending down showers of stone. I faced Ivara directly. She stood untouched, a vision of icy, inhuman beauty, her eyes glowing with cruel triumph. "You cannot defeat me, child," she said, her voice thunderous, layered with 1,000 others. "You were made for me." I gritted my teeth and ran at her. The ground heaved under my boots, magic trying to unmake reality itself. Stone split. The air buckled. A dozen shadow claws lashed at me, slicing into my arms and legs. But I pushed forward, screaming with rage and fear and something wilder, hope. Ivara raised her hand, summoning a spear of pure darkness, hurling it toward my heart. Time slowed. I saw Kaelin out of the corner of my eye, collapsing to his knees, too drained to help. Roderick roared my name, dragging himself toward me, blood leaking from a gash across his temple. Mira's song soared higher, a desperate wail of resistance. At the last possible moment, I dove aside, the dark spear grazing my side, burning like ice where it touched. I hit the ground hard, rolling and coming up with my dagger drawn. The same dagger I had carried since before the village cast me out. My past. My weapon. Ivara laughed. A sound like shattering glass. "You are nothing," she hissed, her voice filling the crumbling hall. "You are broken." Maybe. Maybe she was right. But broken things could still cut. I hurled the dagger with all the strength left in me. It spun through the chaos and struck true, sinking deep into Ivara's chest, just above her heart. She staggered back, her eyes wide with something like disbelief. A heartbeat passed. Then, two. The throne room trembled violently. Cracks raced along the floor, up the walls. Statues toppled. Light, Brilliant golden light poured from the wound in Ivara's chest, splitting her form apart from within. "You could have been a queen," she whispered one last time, not in anger, but in sorrow. And then she disintegrated, scattering into 1,000 motes of ash that swirled upward and vanished into the breaking sky. Silence fell. A silence so profound that even the air seemed to weep. We emerged into a new dawn. Kaelin sat slumped against a fallen column, his hands shaking from spent magic. Roderick leaned heavily on his sword, every wound a testament to his stubbornness. Mira stood silent, staring at the rising sun with her strange, empty eyes. I looked out over the ruined landscape. Broken, scarred, but alive. "You have your answers now," Kaelin said hoarsely. "What will you do with them?" I thought about it. Thought about all I had lost. All I had survived. The cost of success, I realized, is everything you thought you needed. But somewhere inside me, buried deep, the ember of hope still smoldered. I turned toward the horizon, where mist still curled over the land. "Forward," I said simply. And together, we walked into the unknown.